Hello there and welcome back or welcome to my channel. And I am so excited for this tutorial today. And the reason I'm so excited is because a lot of people on TikTok have tried to come for me before on my ability to perform services on women of color. So I definitely had to go grab my girl real quick and let her use me for a tutorial. So here we are. So Simone is a licensed professional herself and she is normally doing lots of blonding on her hair. So we're gonna refresh her today. She expressed to me that she wanted to be a little bit heavier blonded throughout her base, and she wanted to try to brighten her ends up a little bit. So basically throughout this whole application, I'm having to do lots and lots of tedious foiling. And really what that means is, and you're gonna see me doing it throughout this tutorial, is that in order to prevent breakage, I'm basically having to do like a double foil with each section. So I'm having to pick out those little fine low light pieces and lay another foil down underneath so I can get those lightened without overlapping any of her other blonde, because she was getting to the point of being close to like some serious damage if we did overlap her. She did already have a little bit of breakage from her previous blonding. And I would say Simone's natural curl texture is between a 3C and a 4A. She does keep up with Brazilian blowouts on her hair every few months. And like I said, she's used to doing lots of blonding. So over time, that curl pattern is going to loosen up a bit. And because she has this natural curlier texture, it is going to be more prone to breakage quicker. So that's why we want to be super careful not to overlap any of that blonde. And when you're doing tedious foiling processes like this a lot of times is what can take that foil 2+ hours to even get done. And honestly, most clients don't even realize that because obviously they can't see what we're doing back there. So I think it's really important to communicate that to your clients because one, they realize that you're taking extra time and extra work to go out of your way to make sure that their hair stays as healthy as possible. And then it's like, no, I'm not just moving slow. Like this literally is a process and I am putting in some major work back here to make sure I'm not out here just breaking your hair off. This full foil application on Simone probably took about 2.5 hours and her total service time was 6 hours from start to finish. I am doing my typical sectioning here, which is just the 2 side sections and then the 1 back section, which I will divide into 2 sections if I so please. It honestly just depends on my mood, but I did split it into 2 sections with Simone here. And then I'm always doing my sectioning based off of how they part their hair. Now, if they like to flip their part around, I always suggest foiling based off of the middle part. That way they can flip it whichever way they want to. And per usual, I am using Schwarzkopf Blondeme as my lightener, and I am starting with 7 volume and working my way up to 20 once I get towards those front sections. And we are doing a baby light application here, so we are going to take teeny tiny slices throughout this whole application. And also per usual, I am mixing Olaplex in my Blondeme. So with that Blondeme having the bond builder already inside of it, paired with the Olaplex, it is just like chef's kiss for your lightening. Doing naturally curlier textures like this is actually very therapeutic for me to foil because there's more grit to the hair. So the foil stays so much more secure and I don't have to worry about bleeding as much because that is very common with Blondeme. So having those curlier, more natural hair textures really just helps that foil feel more secure. So there's 2 tips that I have in order to avoid bleeding with Blondeme, and one of them is to double wrap your foil. So if I'm not confident on whether or not that foil is going to be a bleeder or not, I will double wrap it, meaning I will place another foil underneath and wrap it around the first foil. That way, the lightener, if it does overflow and bleed out, it's gonna fall on that second foil instead of on the hair underneath. And then another trick, instead of being heavy with the saturation all the way up to the root, I like to kind of feather it when I get closer to the top of the foil at the root. When you feather it up and you're focusing less of the saturation up towards the root, it's really gonna help with less bleeding because there's less saturation up there. One thing you will always hear me say is that I am foiling for coverage. So I'm not really focused on my blending and my foiling application. My blending comes in for me in my toning application. I am foiling strictly for coverage because I'm trying to get as much covered as I can in this application. versus focusing so much on having that perfectly blended root. And at this front section, I'm working my way up into diagonals, and then I'm gonna get to a point here where I kind of split it off into this little mohawk section, just because it made it a little bit easier for me to navigate. But you do you go all the way up in diagonals if you want, work at horizontals if you want. Do whatever makes you comfortable. This is just how I kind of like to go through my applications. I'm just kind of going with the flow and going with the head shape and the curvature of the head. Like, her head shape is really just kind of leading me here and how I am doing my sectioning. And here I am jumping to this little mohawk section that I created on this side, and we're just gonna finish this up with our slicing and then do the same thing on her other side section. And then we're gonna be done foiling, and we're gonna start pulling some of those foils in the back. Keep in mind, I did check her foils throughout just to make sure that we weren't getting any over processing. So here we are pulling those foils, and combing them through also helps take some of that lightener off, so you don't have to worry about any bleeding. But I really just kind of pull through with my fingertips and then wipe that off. And then here I'm just gonna do some teasy lightening on whatever hair is left out, just to kind of give her a little bit of that brightness that she wanted, but still, again, not risking any breakage. We're using 7 volume, and because it's open air and it's not in foils, it's not going to process as much as it would normally. So it's a safe application here. And then she processed for about 20 minutes normally, and then we popped her under super low heat for like the last 15 minutes. Toning time. Okay, so for her roots, we did Shades EQ 7M, 6NB, and for her mids and ends, we did 8V, 9V, and 9VG with about a half an ounce of clear. That way we could process full timing without worrying about any overtone. We let that process for 20 minutes and then rinsed her out. We're applying that root toner first right over that line of demarcation from those foils, and then going back over with that mids and ends toner. The key here to not getting any nasty, yucky smudges from your root toner to your mids and ends is to making sure that hair is completely 100% detangled, and you are using a good detangling brush like the wet brush to ensure that there's not any snagging. And this is our final look. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you want to see more like it, make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.